Today we're going to be installing a UMP air filter system into a 2013 RZR XP 900. I chose this just because I like the features on it. I compared this to the KMS, the K&N, and just chose that this would be the best route for me. So you have three main parts plus a baggie of hardware. You get your canister. I elected to get the Donaldson air filter in here. This is your plenum, and this is what connects up to your actual throttle plates or your throttle body. And then this is a connecting hose. So inspect all your parts. This Donaldson filter and the way this is designed, the airflow is supposed to circulate and spit out particulates out of this valve. First step, you need to get a Torx 27 and we need to remove the rear left fender. So there are 9 bolts or nuts, screws we need to get, and one of them is deep down inside, so you might need to do it with a different tool, but I'm going to be using my impact. Get that one. Need to get that one. Need to get that one. Here. We also need to get this one right in here. Okay, once you get all 9 out, this whole thing will pop off. Now, in my case, I have a rock slider here that comes up and bolts in there. So I can either unbolt it from the frame, or I should be able to install it with this much access right there. And I'm going to attempt that. Next, we need to remove the noise cancellation box, which is this right here. It's the exact same style Torx 27. There's one bolt right there, one right there, and 2 up top there. Okay, we also have to loosen this hose clamp, and we're going to be reusing this hose clamp, so don't get rid of it. We also have this tube in the back. Go ahead and disconnect that. I'm going to set this aside. And we also have to remove this lower bracket. These are 13mm bolts, just 2 of them on top. A ratchet makes quick work of these. Have the bracket off. I put this the screws back in there. I think we're going to need it later to install the actual canister, so don't lose those. Next, we are actually removing this 3-inch hose, like so. And now they want us to actually remove these because we're going to be putting this bracket up in place. Go ahead and loosen these 2 ties. We're going to be removing the canister from our bracket so we can mount the bracket. This is aluminum, so make sure you don't scratch it. Just like that. The bracket is actually going to install underneath this bolt, so we need to remove this bolt. For your D-ring. And the rear one, you just need to loosen about halfway. So we're going to be installing this bracket. These 2 bolts are the ones that we took out that held that support brace. This one is that D-ring, the front D-ring that we took out. So by lifting up the bed just a little bit, we'll be able to slide this in. But before we install those bolts, we need to put some Loctite in them. So we'll go ahead and slide this in place. Okay, just like that. So I got the bolt hole lined up on that side. Just doing a little bit of Loctite on here. Don't forget your D-ring. So I got this lined up. Squeeze a little bit of Loctite in there. Tighten both of them down. We're going to tighten up this D-ring. Go ahead and tighten up this back one as well. Okay, next we need to install our hose clamps. I had to redo or undo this one to get this around that bracket. And that will just go on the front like so. Put our canister in there. And the way we want to situate this, it's basically in there like this, where the UMP logo is situated like that. This elbow is going to be about 3/4 of an inch from touching that. Rotate that elbow. Get the other hose clamp in place. And of course for you this will be easier to see because you won't have your fender in the way. So we want that about 3/4 of an inch, and then just a little bit of space between there so that elbow's not hitting that bracket. This needs to now go down and slide into the canister. Go ahead and tighten up your hose clamp so that's nice and secure now. That's going to sit in there like that, and then basically this kind of skirt is going to go over your mesh. Slide that down, and then underneath, just slide that right on top, or right into place. Okay, next they want us to slide off that boot and put this over the housing here, where your pre-filter is for your razor. Get that down as far as you can. And then they supplied us with some zip ties. Okay, so we're taking our 2 large supplied zip ties. Just clamping these down nice and tight. Okay, this next step I forgot to have on camera, but you're putting your fender back on. I removed my pre-filter, and as I put it back on I just used my fingers to push it around that boot to make sure it fits well. Okay, we need to remove our engine cover. If you haven't already, we need to take this boot off. We're going to be taking off these 2 bolts. This is a 10mm bolt. Also, it's a good case, or it's a good idea to make sure this area is pretty clean, because once we remove this, we're going to be exposing our engine, or at least the intake of it. So it would be a good idea to make sure you don't have any loose dirt or anything around your throttle body. We will be reusing this tube. It looks like we need to modify it just a little bit, but we will be using this tube. I'm going to slide that tube off. You can pull it out now. Don't lose your hose clamps. We also have this idle control hose. It just connects into the back of the air cleaner. It's a rubber grommet, so you might need to yank it kind of hard to get it out. By that right there, we need to remove that. Finish removing these two 10 millimeter bolts. Set them aside. We are going to be reusing these grommets, so don't lose them. There are some hose clamps we need to loosen right there. That holds on the stock air box to the intakes. There's one on each side we need to get to. Access both of them from this side. There's one, and there's the other back there. You just get them loose so they'll pull off. Once you have those loose, they should slide off then. You might need to assist them with your hand. There's one. There's two. And then this lifts out. We are going to reuse these hose clamps, so we need to remove those. We also need to remove these two grommets because we're going to reuse those as well. And we are going to transfer these onto here. The easiest way to transfer this is to remove the metal innard, push that through like so, make sure it's sitting correctly, and then insert that. Just like that. So we're going to be loosening these, pulling them out a little bit, and installing them onto our throttle body. And we're going to be using the same clamps that came off to put back on. And make sure they're oriented in a direction that you'll be able to tighten them yourself. Let's actually put these on first. Like so. And then tighten it in place. I got those nice and tight in there. Want to make sure your boot goes all the way around. And it does. If you got any dust in there, go and wipe it out now. Now we're going to be putting in this plenum. By the way, here is where this grommet is going to connect in at. Now I can come in from the top, tighten these down, make sure it's pushed nice and square on there. Don't forget your Loctite. Now don't forget to plug in your hose down through the bottom for the idle air. And I'm going to reroute my idle air just right down the center like that. Okay, I got this grommet in, but I actually had to remove the whole thing to get it because it was so difficult to squeeze in. So I had to take a screwdriver and very carefully push it in without hurting the aluminum. But now we should be good to install this. Okay, the next step is to install this old hose that we removed earlier. Okay, you can get it situated in here like so, then it's not pinching your line. It does push up against your clutch tube, but it doesn't look like it's pinching it or anything, so it should be okay. And go ahead and do a dry fit on this. See how this is gonna sit on there, and it looks like I'm actually gonna be taking off a decent chunk, more than just 2 inches, maybe 2.5, 3 inches. It's hard to say, but I'm gonna go ahead and make a mark on here and do a cut right there. UMP did say you could use WD-40 on these connections because it'll dry up and not create future problems. So I may have to do that on that. I think that'll work just like that. Now before I actually install this, beforehand this hose was pre-filter and now it's post-filter. So if you can see in there, there's actually all kinds of dust and dirt. So we need to clean that out before we allow this engine to suck anything through it. Okay, go ahead and secure this in. Okay. Now we got this one. Okay, we got that secure. We rerouted it underneath there. It's only pinching just barely right there, but I think that'll be okay. We got these secure, that's secure, so that's good to go. So the last bit we have is this little valve, and we have to, the hose that we pulled off earlier, it's like an oil breather, it needs to connect into this, and it needs to connect into, the hose needs to connect into here, and then this mounts to one of the airbox bolts that we took out earlier, and they give us this bracket to mount this. So we'll be doing that next. Okay, I'm holding a light now, so I don't know how effective this is going to be, but we need to install that in there and make sure this is facing down. Cut off approximately 3/4 of an inch off this hose. And go ahead and put this bracket on there, or this little valve, like that. Okay, so earlier we took these off from the airbox, and we need to basically attach this into here. And then where these notches are, we need to zip tie that kind of like that, just so that's now facing down. Okay, so that's basically how it's supposed to look right there. It's just a breather hose, so you just want to make sure it's not pinched. Okay, once that's installed, you're just going to install your fender. Make sure you put your boot over this, and we're all set. I'm not going to show the installation process on the fender, but that's the entire install. So thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you guys soon. Bye.